Hans, they told me that I wouldn't be able to play a CD. Do you think I should put the speaker up to my laptop to play the music, or how do you think?
You can just do little snippets of it, not the whole piece.
Can you turn up the volume? Okay.
You know.
All right. Oh, I sent it to you instead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you turn up the volume?
Test,
And
test.
tell me when to start.
We're live.
We are live. Hello. The values that uplift the spirit are revealed as worthless because these values are not compatible during the concrete conflict, which many are dying, starving, and homeless. Culture and art cannot ignore the destruction of spirit, of the right to live, in the cruel seas, refugee camps, and bombed ruins of the Eastern Mediterranean regions. My name is Biba Sheikh. I am kind of a creative liberator. My purpose is to spark the human spirit through unforgettable art experiences. And for that, I have a global healing arts production company, Mediterranean Fire, that works towards awakening humanity through a new form of expression. Mediterranean Fire is a company that brings new heartwarming meanings, communion, and healing after pointing out the paradoxes that can camouflage all kinds of atrocities. It is through the oriental qualities that we breathe and perform the poetry that is infinitely within. This poetry is our strength of will to exceed aesthetic, individual, and group inability of expression. Today, Mediterranean Fire brings an in-depth demonstration of non-Western approaches to artistic expressions. We will see what defines these. Is it the origin of ceremonies and ritualistic acts, or is it a mathematical equation, or simply a cultural tradition? According to our guest today, Hans Christian, the word rasa is of the essence. He says rasa is a tantric term. It points to the really essential spiritual experience, the core experience. Hans Christian says it's the nectar in any ecstatic experience. Rasa is the divine flavor of any experience. He describes it as being very, very refined and very exquisite, and adds that an entire book has been written about rasa. Rasa is also the beautiful name for a musical collaboration between our guest Hans Christian and Kim Waters. Let's listen to a song titled, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, maybe Hans can tell me,
Narishima.
Narishma Prayers?
Narishima Prayers.
Narishima Prayers. Before we start, did you want to tell us what Narishima signifies?
It's a divine name for Ganesh, for Lord Ganesh, and it is basically coming from the Vedic tradition. So it's Sanskrit expression, okay? And Rasa has, over the years, has drawn from sacred prayers from the Vedic tradition and basically presented them in a contemporary musical way, maintain a certain sacred energy in the music. And we have released 6 CDs of that kind of music.
Yes, that describes what I listen to perfectly, and you're going to listen to it now. Right now, I'm going to play a piece of it for you. Now I'd like to give you a little example of what happens when the musical piece evolves, with in maybe the middle part of it. Let's listen to what it is. I'm curious to hear it. Hang on. That was Nrishma Prayers by Hans Christian and Kim Waters, one of their musical pieces of the group, which they call Rasa, the core experience of any ecstatic experience, which is very refined and exquisite.
Biba,
yes.
Biba, I brought a sarangi. So the instrument that we just heard, that kind of sinuous wailing instrument, was this instrument right here.
Mm-hmm.
It's from India. It's called a sarangi.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to play you a few notes that I played in that piece.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's how that sounds, and it's called 1,000 Colors of the Rainbow to translate that word sarangi. And there's so many strings on here and so many overtones. It's an old Indian. This is a North Indian version.
Mm-hmm.
So
and
anyway,
how many strings are there, and how does it compare to a Western instrument?
Okay, so it has 3 main play strings. Maybe you can see that. The thick strings are play strings, and it has 33 resonating strings.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
So you have all those pegs. And the idea is that you create a rich overtone resonance. You have to tune all the strings precisely to make that work.
Mm-hmm.
But, the old traditions in music, and not just in India, they all had resonating strings because they figured out that it would enrich the listening experience tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
And you played with the cuticles of your left hand.
Mm-hmm.
See that little black area right there?
Mm-hmm.
I have a little powder on there. So you played with it. It's a very unusual instrument. It's fretless. And since I primarily am a cellist, I understood the idea of a fretless instrument. I just had to practice a lot.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. Yeah. And you were saying that this instrument, like others that are non-Western, actually take very seriously the vibration of the tone and the effect they have on the listener.
Yes, I'll show you another instrument from Scandinavia. Just 1 sec, right here.
Okay.
So this instrument is from Sweden,
Mm-hmm.
completely different tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And look at all those strings.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you have 4 play strings, and then you have 16 additional resonating strings.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to put it in a humorous comment, you could say they all used to smoke the same stuff in the old days. But
Yes.
more seriously,
Yes.
they before, you could say maybe before Christianity was standardizing many things, people had maybe a more transcendental experience of life.
Yes. I noticed, one of my questions a little later on was about that at some point in history, the abolition of Gothic temples by some kind of, social, possibly political movements at the times wiped out Gothic temples. And at that point, Western music watered down and became standardized to what it is today, and kind of lost those in between tones that could be found in these instruments.
I still think music is absolutely beautiful, no matter what. Even when a lot of people are referring to the introduction of the tempered tuning system, that somehow something was lost. That you would go from a A432 to a A440 tuning system, the tempered scale that Johann Sebastian Bach popularized, and all of that. I think the human spirit is endlessly creative, and it's up to us what we do with it, whether we do in 432 or in 440. So I am not a subscriber of the story of a loss or something. I think there's other factors that have impoverished the music, and it's more of a commercial nature, but not so much the fact that history has taken its course.
Thank you. That's a very healthy-minded way of being able to. That's very good. I'm sure that's very good. I hope young people are listening and will register that. Now, you didn't turn out to be a Western musician, and do you think that this is because of the sense of sacredness that you acquired as a youth when playing the cello in what you had called in temple-like settings? And how did you experience this as a youth? How could you describe this kind of connection to the sacredness before you moved to Germany when you were 21? I think you said in an interview, a beautiful interview that I had heard with an Indian broadcaster, that your father was a priest of a Lutheran church, and it was a very large church made of stone, and you got to be touched by these amazing acoustics of the church, and it did something to you, and it created a strong connection between the music and sacredness. Maybe you can talk to us about that.
Sure. Yeah, so I grew up in Germany and came to America when I was 21. And so my father was a Lutheran minister in northern Germany. And yes, he was the pastor at a big church. And so I grew up with the concept of the divine. But I would say I was curious about it, but also cynical about it. And as a teenager, I had started to play cello when I was 9 years old. So I was pretty deeply involved in cello by the time I was 13, 14 already. And I would steal the keys to the church, and at night I would sneak into the church. And I could not turn on any lights. So imagine you're in this dark church, and I would sit right in front of the altar, which was the forbidden zone, or so it seemed. Nobody ever told me you can't do that, but it felt that way. And I was tempting God. I said, God, if you exist, reveal yourself to me.
Yes. Oh my God.
And so it was a poignant moment that I expressed creatively by improvising on my cello. It was partially a provocation, partially an invocation.
Absolutely.
And partially just just teenage confusion and curiosity. But the point is, I used music to articulate what I could not articulate in words in an amazing setting that had both great acoustics, because it was a stone church, beautiful sound, and it was a temple. And it's like, God, I want to get to the bottom of this. I want to understand this. It became in a way, my lifelong quest as an artist is to map out that road, map out that question. And of course, now I feel like it's a road that leads internally rather than externally. But it started at a young age. Absolutely.
Yes. So how do certain vibrations bring about ecstatic states of mind?
In the player or in the listener?
Let's do the player. I like the way I like listening to your experiences. Yeah.
Every time I pick up the cello, I go into a subtle form of ecstasy. And I've noticed that with mature players. Watch Yo-Yo Ma play the cello. How he's transforming. Watch any great musician, I mean, much greater than me. I don't even want to compare myself to Yo-Yo Ma, but the point is, when you submerge yourself into the mystery of music, and that is exactly what it will become. It will become a living practice of exploring the mystery of life, you know. And so as a player, a transformation occurs instantaneously. And I happen to improvise a lot. I'm a strong improviser. And so when I should say I play my own music based on improvisation that's then refined and crystallized into real music. So I find myself just going into a place of concentration and openness, and their heart and mind are aligned, hopefully anyways. For a listener, it's up to the listener what they're resonating with, you know.
Okay. Yes, that's
right.
Just, thank you so much. Yeah, it's you doing that transmits so much to us for sure. And can you also? I was wondering, because a lot of times what you're describing is cupped in in the more cultural or academic or or I don't know, like in the history of art, it's cupped with the notion of I don't know how to even pronounce the word eroticism in art, with the examples of a lot of times trance rituals. They talk about trance rituals in this context, and other ceremonies of even indigenous groups. So how do we make the bridge, and what is it?
Well, boy, I mean, I think everybody has to figure that out for themselves. Some people are drawn to pagan traditions. A lot of Westerners these days are attracted to that, and they find a lot of spiritual nourishment in that, and the feel of liberation, and that becomes a very healing experience, and that's beautiful. Other people from the Western mindset, like myself, a white boy from Germany, we transcend styles. I'm classically trained. I also was a rock and roller pretty seriously for a number of years. Now I find depths of experience by combining styles and combining traditions,
And
so,
so you came to, I imagine that this started happening when you moved to California. Could you talk to us about how you went from that, what you were describing before in Germany, that background you had, to electronic music? Because I remember also hearing that you reconnected with the divine through experiences you had in expressing what you needed to express in an electronic music context.
Absolutely. Well, that's a really wide question, but I'm going to summarize it quickly. So when I went to Los Angeles when I was 21 years old, I pretty much went to really become a good musician. And I also played bass at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I had the youthful exuberance of wanting to become a famous musician. And so I studied bass guitar, was very inspired, played with a lot of bands, and slowly worked my way up in the LA music scene. Made it pretty far, played with some really famous people, big deals. And then I realized that um, I had a lot more creatively to offer than playing solid gold or acting really cool on stage, and really felt like spiritually I was out of alignment with myself. I was always using every situation to feed my ego rather than give to people.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a profoundly disturbing realization.
Mm-hmm.
So um, that forced me to branch out creatively. I did music for theater. I played in folk music. I did solo performances with metal instruments and cello and looping and all of that. I wanted to find um, I wanted to find a more authentic experience for myself, and eventually I ended up leaving LA because LA proved to be uh, not the right place anymore for that. And I moved to San Francisco and got into the whole spiritual music scene,
Mm-hmm.
the kirtan and chant scene. So that was blossoming right at the late 1990s, and I ended up becoming a producer of such music and combining, electronic and world music and chant elements and so forth,
Mm-hmm.
and work with a lot of artists. To this day, I'm doing that actually.
Yes, and when you started producing albums in with the group Rasa, you and Kim Waters,
Yeah.
can you talk to us about how your spirituality shifted? I think you went deeply into some elements of the Vedic Indian tradition. So were you working a lot? I don't know, with chakras or meditating, reading, or what were you doing? Or were you taking lessons from
I'm
somebody?
not that pure.
Okay. You're not? You seem like it.
No. Basically, I think, well, first of all, I worked with Krishna Das. Krishna Das was an artist that just appeared on the scene and on the West Coast, and I played with him, toured with him,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked with Dave Stringer, another artist that's now very well known. And it just was um, a natural step for me. I was more and more drawn into the spiritual vibration of the Vedic tradition. I worked with Indian musicians and so forth. And then I met Kim,
Mm-hmm.
and Kim is just a sublime being. She's an amazing visual artist. She is, yeah. I mean, she has done huge commissions of sacred expressions from the Vedic text, and she's world renowned for that. But she also loves to sing, and we just heard her voice. She has this beautiful, gentle voice, and she has an uncanny ability to memorize these chants. And so when I met
Wow.
her, oh my God, I know what to do, and for me, it became a great creative expression, and yes, spiritually very nourishing for a number of years
Mm-hmm.
that we did this music together.
Mm-hmm. And then now the page has turned, time has passed, and I'm going to play a piece that I found called Higher from 2015,
Okay.
just to give people a taste of this music. I apologize for the wait. I apologize for the ad, but I can't skip it. So 1 second. Here we are. All right, I think we're okay now. I'm gonna. yeah, that was. I mean, if people would be able to see the video of you playing it, they would see that you were actually by yourself on stage, and that you create. Could you talk to us about how you create those sound beds or whatever you call them with the drone and all that, and how you came to that? Do a lot of people do that, or is it something that you do more than other people?
Mm-hmm. So that technique is called live looping, and basically what I'm doing, this is all live. So when I give concerts of my own music, those concerts consist of mostly cello playing through a looping system. The devices that I control with my feet, and I record myself on the spot, and I add to it, and I build these pieces. So there is nothing pre-recorded. There are no computers. There everything has to be played. So I wanted to maintain that challenge for myself, and also I think energetically, it's a lot more. It's just a lot more special when you, as a musician, you really have to play everything. Rather than just pushing a button and then just play one instrument to it. I did that for a while. I just didn't like that very much. So the live looping is that you start with a drone often, or with a pattern, and then you can add to it and add to it and add to it. And then you can also subtract from it and add new ideas and so forth. So I've recorded a few CDs like that, and I've given many concerts like that. I love playing that. The cello is especially suitable, I feel like, for that kind of technique, because you can do rhythmic stuff, you can do long notes, you can harmonize beautifully. And then I also weave in the sarangi that I showed you a little while ago, and the nickel harpa, that other instrument. Sometimes I add a native flute, you know. So it is called a live looping technique.
Okay. You are listening to WJZZ, Cool TV, the coolest TV in the world. We are on Periscope, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube. Please comment if you'd like. Press like, subscribe, and that way we can evolve this project in connection with the oldest radio station for jazz in Detroit, WJZZ. We are today, if you just came on, we're speaking with Hans Christian, a cellist who has dedicated his life in a journey towards making the connection between his music and what would you say, ecstatic experiences, devotional powers, trying to find the mysteries of life through his musical experiences, an inner voyage, as well as sharing it with us. He's also a music producer. He is the director of Studio 330 in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, where he works on many musical projects. Would you like to talk to us about these musical projects and where this is all rolling for the future, how you envision your spirit and your music?
Yes. So yes, my main activities right now is to produce projects in a variety of styles. Artists either come to my studio and I work with them on their music, or I do long distance projects. Well, long distance during COVID especially, but I've always done that because we live in a big country. So no matter where you are, the project will be on the other end of the continent, right? So thanks to internet, I do a lot of long distance work, but I have a really nice recording studio here, pretty large and well equipped. And, all my personal experiences, Biba, as an artist and as a musician and as a recording artist, I put into service to the artists that I end up working with, because I know what it's like to be creative. I know the highs and I know the lows. And I know the jitters in the studio, and I also know how much fun it can be,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so I'd like to believe that I'm holding the space for the artists, other than also coming up with a lot of creative ideas and certainly engineering it and making sure it all sounds good and all of that. But
Mm-hmm.
creative, since we are focusing on the creative aspect and the spiritual aspect in this conversation, I believe all music is spiritual or has the potential. It's not that it has to be from India.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely not. I believe that a really good rocking guitar sometimes will just be so healing because that is what we want to hear in that moment. So
Okay.
I know that when people come into the studio, they have worked on their ideas, they have bled over them, right? They have doubted it, they have refined them. I honor that. Does that
Mm-hmm.
make sense?
Definitely does.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
That's my work. I'm quite busy. I love doing it. It's often very hard work. It requires extra commitment and extra hanging in there because I end up doing a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so forth.
Yes.
But it's my life's calling. That's what I
You know
do.
what? Yes, I recall when I had first met Hans in Sturgeon Bay. We were doing this theater project, which I've talked about basically on every live stream. It's called Right to Live, and a group of actors was delving into situations of refugees in Exodus fleeing their villages after chemical bombs were dropped. Many people died. And it presented situations that occurred at the border crossings for refugees and during the routes where many women and children were left with very little resources. With the ashes in my eyes, I see the tens of thousands who have perished, sometimes standing in the corners of rocks, climbing on the canyons, wherever we walk, wherever we sleep. Their voices I feel within the silent air. The postures of love, postures of death. The deceased were like portraits of the living. The contorted bodies lying one on top of the other, embracing each other in positions of protection and care. The postures of love, postures of death. Men and women in turmoil, in bewilderment, disabled by authority, the corpses of the elderly collapsed, suffering faces of children, postures of love, postures of death. So, um, what did it do for you to go totally into this pain and sorrow? I had also listened to you speaking about sometimes in your music that you that people shouldn't avoid their problems and their depressions, anxieties, pain and sorrow, that maybe they should go into that and somehow confront it face on and try to transform it. So I remember you told me that this music that which you were so kind to do. I know you were extremely busy in Sturgeon Bay, and I know that you came to help us with the theater production because you simply knew that we probably weren't going to find a musician for it. So you really, out of this way of your commitment and your sense of responsibility, you did come to us and lifted up our project considerably with your music. And I know that the music you made in that project then went on and you developed it and transformed it. And I do know that it also maintained this sense of falling, this because the CD is called After the Fall. So
Yeah,
how about,
right here.
yes, and right here too. Yes. So could you
Yeah.
talk to us about this project? It seems to have a different emotion or a different color to it than other projects.
Yes. Well, there's so much I could say, but first of all, the Right to Live project that you are referring to here in Sturgeon Bay, it was an exercise in rediscovering your humanity, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't it?
Yes.
And we often can't go there until we have acknowledged the shadow in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And on a humanity scale, we must reawaken our compassionate heart for people that are suffering so much. And I think that seems to be one of your callings in life,
Mm-hmm.
for the people in the Mediterranean area
Mm-hmm.
that are suffering so much. And it's so easy to not pay attention anymore to that. So I think through creative expression, through voice, through acting, through poetry and other things that you try to include in all of that, what you were doing, in my opinion, what my observation, you try to reawaken our compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody's doing that, I perk up. It's like, oh, this is interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Mm-hmm.
And so, although, yes, that was kind of a last-minute commitment that I made, once I understood what it was about, and you and I met, and we did an improvisation to get to know each other creatively,
Mm-hmm.
said, oh, I know what to do.
Okay.
And we didn't have to plan a lot, because all I needed was, where in this performance do you want me to play?
Mm-hmm.
But what I played was totally up to me, and you gave me, you trusted me so much, which was so awesome. And I think that's why we ended up synchronizing so well, right? And so, having said all of that, yes, that was a project of grief,
Mm-hmm.
right? We went into deep grief. I think people in the audience were deeply moved, deeply touched, and deeply appreciative, because in our ordinary life here, we live a pretty comfortable life here, and it's easy to forget that not everybody enjoys it. Everybody deserves it, obviously.
Mm-hmm. It's a right. Yes.
It's a right to live. That's the title. It's the right to be respected as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. And how do you foresee the future? I mean, when I ask you this question, I also have flashes of the conditions of the world. Maybe you have a much more, maybe you don't have these flashes that I do about the environmental crisis, which is kind of going to designate a lot about our, our environment where we're living and our Mother Earth. How do you foresee the future with your music and work, and what do you think about that component to it too?
Well, I'm both an optimist and a pessimist. I think we as human beings, we have to learn to be humane.
Mm-hmm.
That's our biggest challenge. We're really good at being destructive. Let me put it this way, Biba. I had a chance to play at Chartres Cathedral, the famous cathedral in France, for 6 years in a row. I did an artist in residence there 6 years in a row.
Wow.
And my job was to play cello in that cathedral, solo cello, after hours, for people that had gathered from around the world to go through a profound healing experience. Okay? So when I walked into that cathedral for the first time, there were two words that came to me.
What? Wait, one moment.
Perfect timing. Perfect timing.
Can you repeat that when you were there? Yes?
Two words. Devastating beauty. And I thought, why devastating? Because I realized that 800 years ago, people could build something that amazing without electricity, and were so refined in their sacred geometry and in their architecture and in their knowledge, and the famous stained glasses, and all of that was just stunning. So it seems like we have only grown in our ability to destroy more. That's not really true, but when we really think about in terms of the human spirit, it was already so refined 800 years ago that it could build these cathedrals,
Yes.
you know? And so that makes me somewhat pessimistic. It's like, are we learning also to honor our humanity more? But yes, we are. And yes, we are. But we have grown so efficient in exploiting nature and separating ourselves from nature, and our relationship to nature, to the
Yeah.
life force around us, reflects how we relate to ourselves.
Hmm.
You
You
see?
know, yes, I think you're even at this point of where we are in this crisis. You're being also very kind about it, as most people are.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking at the devastation that even insects are going through, just to give you one example, I mean, they are going extinct. 60% are gone. If you look
Mm-hmm.
at them, if you just stop and look at them and see what they've been through when they're flying around you, they
Yeah.
have been through so much. And we have this hatred in our mind just at the sight
Yeah.
of them. They
Yeah.
have to go through so much hatred with us. I think the hatred really should just stop and understand that there is a hatred, a repulsion every time you
Mm-hmm.
look at that piece of life. This life that is flowing through them is the same life that is flowing through us. It's another life form. These are forms of life, and they are
Mm-hmm.
not to be massacred.
Well, absolutely. And they're masters, with every creature that is on this planet, and even plants, they are masters. They're in their most ecstatic form, because that's the only way they can be. So when you look at a dragonfly and what all the states that it goes through before it becomes that final version that we see, and what an amazing, beautiful being it is, really, or
Mm-hmm.
anything. And you say, wow, bees, we take everything for granted. Wasps, birds, how they migrate for
Mm-hmm.
thousands of miles and then they come back. I have the same robins here every year. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
the sandhill cranes we have here in northeastern Wisconsin, amazing. They migrate thousands of miles and they come back to the same meadow.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yes.
know, how can you not just be in awe of that
Yeah. And
and
how can you
stop?
take away the trees and I mean,
Mm,
I don't know, I could go on and on now,
yeah,
but I'm
I
amazed
mean,
that people
we need
prefer.
resources. We need resources. Obviously, we enjoy right now, we enjoy this technology. We can talk to each other. These
Mhm.
devices are built from minerals that were extracted from the earth that leaves a certain amount of damage behind. There's no question about it. However, how we relate to our overall existence is still up to us. And even if we just say, I'm voluntarily not focusing all the time on amassing as much stuff as possible,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
But instead, I'm going to nourish my friendships, or I'm going to go on a walk and I'm going to try to stay connected to the basic beauties of life, rather than always running around trying to amass more and getting stressed out and all of that.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You can do that.
So, okay, we have 2 minutes left.
Oh,
What are your projects for the future, musical
oh,
projects?
okay, very good. Well, besides three or four different singer-songwriters I'm working with, usually, I'm in the final stages of composing music for the harmonic egg. It's a whole new thing. The harmonic egg. It's a
Oh.
kind of a sensory refinement tank you sit in. It's a big egg and special music. And I'm composing 80 minutes of music right now, together with Harmony Polo, who is a kirtan artist. And that's very healing. And the intention is healing and sacredness, and
Mhm.
bringing back in alignment. So that's a big project that I'm just about to hand over. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Amazing.
and then there's various other things that are coming up. We can talk about another time.
Wonderful. It was a privilege and an honor, a great pleasure to hear you speak, and I'll be thinking about many things that you said. It's not every day that we meet someone like you, and what you've done is in this life is very important, and apart from being very beautiful, and we thank you so much, and
Thank you, Biba. I think you're doing beautiful work as yourself, so thank you for doing all the things you're doing.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
You take care.
Yeah.
Adios. Bye-bye.
Adios.
Bye. Ciao. We are listening to and watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest TV in the world, live on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, and Twitch. Please give us your comments. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Subscribe, like, and let's lift up this channel together. It's at the heart of Detroit. I would like to bring in a very special guest right now. She is a one of a kind blues singer situated in Detroit. She is the lovely, amazing Tasha Owens. And in order for me to get her into the studio,
You have to do it next week. It's no time.
I'm going to bring her in at the end of the shows to give us all vocal lessons, you could say. She's going to talk to us about the voice itself and the artistic expression, and it's going to be very important for a lot of people. They just notified me right now that this project will be starting next week, and it was a pleasure to be with you today. Please tune in next week at 9 a.m. Detroit time, or pick us up at your convenience on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, or Periscope. Have a beautiful day. Thank you.